Hi, ABT Kids. I'm Dennis Walters. I'm the Director of Education Operations at American Ballet Theater, and I'm joined with my friend Danielle Ventimiglia, who is the Production Stage Manager. Danielle, thank you so much for joining us today, and we have a bunch of questions for you. First off, I guess, just kind of tell us a little bit about uh, how long you've been at ABT and what exactly it means to be a production stage manager.
Sure. I have been at ABT. I actually started as a production assistant, which is like an intern, back in 1995, and then started full time in 1997. So I have to say, this year has been really unique for me not being near a stage for the first time in over 20 years. Um, but a stage manager, and the production stage manager in particular, is in charge of the whole stage management team. There are three of us at ABT, and we're in charge of everything that happens with the show once we get on stage, with the actual performances, and making the house lights go out and the curtains go out, and just making sure the show stays running the way it was intended by the choreographers and the designers.
So I've always referred to the stage managers as being the quarterback of a performance. Is that analogy, does that hold water, that analogy?
Well, I'm in ballet, so I don't know much about football, but I think that, yes, it's a good analogy. And probably the main reason is that we have to be ready for anything that's going to happen, and to be thinking about plan B, plan C, plan D in case anything goes wrong. We're talking about live theater this week, and the whole reason I'm in live theater and not, say, in movies or TVs where you can mess up and do something over, is that you have to think on your feet. Something is going to go wrong when you're doing that many live performances. And that's the challenge, and the thing that I think all of us who stage manage live theater, we thrive on that challenge and love it. So, I guess that is similar to a quarterback. You have to be ready to call whatever you can, to make the show continue to go on.
You're always calling an audible, always adjusting to
Always an
whatever's going
audible.
on around you.
Exactly.
Um, and I mean, is there like ever a performance where everything is perfect and everything goes exactly the way it's supposed to go? Is there always something that you're adjusting on the fly and always having to, make adjustments on?
So it's an interesting question. I originally was going to say, of course, something always goes wrong because it's a live performance and you are literally always making adjustments. Sometimes it's as small as, the dancer taking an extra couple of breaths before coming out on stage, which they might be feeling, the energy of the audience or whatever. And so the conductor is waiting for that second, and we're waiting for that second. Stage managers are, because we often call light cues, based on entrances. So you're constantly making little adjustments like that. But there have been probably a handful of shows in my career where all of us have finished a show and looked at each other and just said, wow, that was pretty awesome. Because literally everything just went the way you wanted it to. And 99% of the other performances, the audience would be happy and not ever know anything was different. But it's rare to have nothing that has to be changed or adjusted slightly during a show.
What are some of the common things that happen during a performance that you may have to be making adjustments on?
Um, One of the biggest ones for us, for ABT, because we tour internationally, is communication with local crews. So ABT travels with their own crew, but the local people in the theaters oftentimes are the ones physically running some of the equipment. So I have two stories actually about house curtains. One of them was when we were recently in Hong Kong and did whipped cream. And at the end of Act One, there's all the whipped cream girls dancing on stage. And I told the curtain operator to stand by. And it's very common in theater to give a standby and put your hand up like this, or something visual so they know, not to go. Um, anyway, this particular crew member who English is not his first language. Got very excited when I gave him the standby, and he brought the house curtain in. So the curtain was just coming down, and all the girls are still dancing on stage, and there were still, I don't know, 20 seconds of music left. And the curtain, so there wasn't enough music and time to reset the curtain to bring it back out again. So we just sort of ended it, and you just sort of heard this applause, and the poor girls were like, oh my gosh, and no one was upset because, again, it's live theater, and obviously it's not something you want to happen, but it was an honest mistake, and that happened. Another time, one of our stage managers, she was reminiscing with her, Jen McGrath, was calling the Bayadere in Taipei. And at the very end of the ballet, the house curtain just did not work. They understood her, but it just failed, which is mechanical failure. And again, something that happens more often than I would like to admit. And she just very quickly got on headset and said, do you know how to take all the lights down? Grandmaster blackout. And they faded all the lights out, and the stage managers who were near the dancers just yelled into the darkness and said, okay, exit, come to me, and that's what you do. And you just sort of, thankfully, when you have a good team of stage managers, which I do and have been blessed with for many years, you sort of know what the other person is going to do. And the number one thing is not to panic, and to figure out a way to solve whatever the immediate problem is.
So there's obviously all the technical things. There's props that may be missing, or people can't find a sword, people can't do this, like all those little things, and having to improvise either without them or figure out how to get I imagine how to get a sword to somebody that needs it as quickly as possible. And what about the dancers, the dancers itself? Blaine, earlier this week, shared a story about a dancer who got trapped in an elevator in Orange County in the middle of a show. All of those different things. So how often in advance do you know if like dancers are going to be in does that happen often, where all of a sudden the dancer is like not available for a scene and you've got to figure out what to do?
I wouldn't say often, but it's been a regular enough occurrence that someone has been delayed or there's been a problem. It's interesting because depending on the ballet, it can be covered so well that even someone who's seen the ballet a million times doesn't know that anything was wrong. I'm thinking of ballets like, for example, the Nutcracker in Act 1, where you've got the maids, and if presents are left out, they've actually been told, they need to get rid of them. We call it strike the presents, get them off stage. But sometimes they don't see them all. And the stage manager has a monitor and a view. We're sitting right in the wings to watch. So many times I have either directed or gone directly to a dancer to say, would you please go back out on stage in character and go do that. You can do that with maids. There's lots of ballets that have servants and various things. We've had issues where the crossbow on Swan Lake, someone was trying to be helpful and it got taken off stage and it was supposed to remain on stage. Or same thing with drinking goblets, where the lead man is supposed to make a toast and say, and doesn't have a glass. So we have to send dancers out with glass, or our prop guys, who I think you had a little bit about. I can't tell you how many times they've come into play with long sticks or hooks, either to just very slowly slide something out on stage or very slowly slide it off stage. In particular, there was a Bayadere, there's a charcoal where there's a little smoke coming out. And it's a hookah, which is, like a smoking sort of pipe that got knocked over, and the charcoal was on the floor, and it started to burn, and we could all see the embers. And this is just before going into the very silent Act 2 scene of Shades, where we don't let anyone be in the curtain wings. And Stephen Dunbar, who's one of our props guys, very quickly thought and got something long to get it off stage, so it didn't start a fire or anything. But things like that happen regularly, is what I'll say.
Well, it's always so impressive. Occasionally, I've been able to be backstage and get to see it all happen, and I wanted to kind of walk through an experience that you and I had, and we can maybe share for the kids and just kind of show them in real time what the chaos can kind of be backstage, and when something, not to anyone's fault, just sometimes things, it's live, as you said, it's live theater and things happen.
Mhm.
About 2 years ago, I hosted our ABT Kids performance, which is a Boston performance that the company does for about 3,500 New York City public school kids. And I remember toward the end of the show, I was backstage and I was actually talking to Gabe Stone Shayer, who was the lead pirate in Corsair, ready to do the dance. And he and I are just talking. There's dancing going on. So a lot of times, just have conversation backstage, and we're in the middle of a conversation. And all of a sudden, Gabe has this look on his face where he's like this. He goes, that's my music. And he just turns and he bolts onto the stage. And he's the only one that goes out on the stage, because there's supposed to be like, I don't know, 12, 15 pirates.
Yeah, yeah.
No one else is around. So he's the only one that bolts out onto the stage. And it's really kind of a magical thing. And I'd like to just kind of show you the clip now, and we can kind of
Mhm.
talk through what's going through your mind as this is happening.
Sure.
All right, so right here, the wrong music starts to play. So you see there's nothing happening on stage. So what's going on backstage right now?
So backstage, we've just realized that our pianist, who's in the orchestra pit, and she's wonderful. However, she missed a pas de deux and skipped over it. So all of these dancers that are walking out on stage, and you can see a few of them just walked off and they're now running on, it's because they all heard the music through the monitors in the hallway, and we immediately paged and backstage started running up into the wings to call all these dancers to come. So you can see they're running from all over the place. And the Met is an enormous place. So backstage, there's chaos at this point. And our stage manager running the show, Jeremiah, also was probably skipping light cues to working with our lighting director, Brad. And right after that, because our pianist didn't know anything was wrong, she was just playing straight along. Right after that, I went down into the orchestra pit. And I guess you were backstage, you were hosting, right? So you saw a little bit of this.
Yeah, and I was, and we basically, I remember we crafted about 3 endings to the show. We crafted the curtain coming down right at the end of this, because the dancers wouldn't know what to do because they weren't sure what to do, if they were supposed to clear the stage,
Right.
go on. We had 2 dancers, I believe it was maybe Devin and Jawan, who were supposed to be doing
Do
the
a
pas de
pas
deux.
de deux, yeah.
They didn't know if they were going to be going on and actually performing, so they were in their costumes already warmed up to go, and they didn't know if they were going to be cut. So it was a lot of, and all this happened in like, it was like 2 to 3 minutes that all
Oh,
this
at the
happened.
most. So for all of these kids shows, what's particularly challenging is these are all excerpts, right? So nothing is in the exact same order that it's going to be in the full length performance. So therefore, you don't have a ton of rehearsal time with it. But it is so ingrained from rehearsals that you could see from the dancers' reactions, the second they heard that music, they went flying out on stage. Like you said, Gabe came running
Mhm.
from downstage, which is where he was probably talking to you. I do remember running down to the orchestra pit and talking to is our pianist. And while she was actually playing, I had to crawl forward, and like the audience, if they were looking into the pit, they could see me. And I had to very quietly try to figure out the time to not interrupt her, to say, you accidentally played out of order. Can you go back and play the pas de deux after this? And she was horrified, of course, but understood what I was saying and said yes. So then I ran back upstairs, and with headsets and walkie talkies, which is what we often use to communicate backstage, we got word to the pas de deux dancers that yes, they would be going on next. And we had so Jeremiah again was on headset calling the light cues. And the other 2 stage managers, we were in the wings, very close to where the dancers ended. And I believe we just yelled at them what to do. I can't remember if we just said bow and exit, And I can't tell you how many times we've had to kind of coach dancers literally like that, like saying things to them and hoping that they are professional enough that they're not going to react on stage and they'll just do what they hear you say. And part of that comes with the experience. They know my voice, so when they hear it, they just immediately follow it. But it must be so just jarring to see something like that happen. But again, in the audience, no one knew anything was wrong unless they happened to see on the program that it was out of order.
Yeah, and that was the funny thing because we talked to all the audience members afterwards. I went outside and went out to the front of the house, and everybody just thought that the pirates naturally just come wandering in throughout the dance. Nobody seemed to really like only a handful of people like noticed that something was off. And it was just there's one dancer who comes on stage who just has to look at his face. He's like, what is going on here? He's just like, so there's that funny moment, but for the most part, like you wouldn't have even really have known. And I don't think the situations like that happen every night or to that degree. No. They don't happen to that extent, but there's small variations where there's always something to react to. And to kind of sum up the theme of the week, the show must go on, right? Regardless of what happens, we got to figure a way to get to the final curtain and make it look like it was whatever's happening on stage was meant to happen. And it was great. And ABT has the best stage managers in the world, just absolutely the best, and just managed to pull together all of the components. And can we just list, before we go, like all the people that you have to pull together for the final show, between the dancers, the musicians,
sure,
stage crew?
Well, and so you've just named a lot of them. If we start backstage, I mean, there's a lot of work that we didn't talk about that a stage manager does preparing for the show, working with people. But once you're physically running the show, there's the crew who are actually physically pushing the buttons to make the lights work or operating the follow spots. There are all the musicians in the pit. We have very close contact with the conductor, the maestro, we call him in our case. All three maestros are men. And we talk to, we're in constant contact with our wardrobe crew, the makeup crew. We've had injuries happen where we have to immediately contact someone and say, so-and-so can't go on, find another person, throw them into a costume, get them on stage. Or having things rip in the middle of a show that have to be stitched in 14 seconds before the next entrance. Trying to think of who else am I missing that we're in touch with.
The supernumeraries,
the supers, all the extras, all the dancers, of course, the artistic staff. We're in touch both right before the show, during every intermission, and after the show. Constantly doing sort of notes and updates, and even explaining when something goes wrong. Again, the things that I say that an audience member wouldn't notice, but of course your artistic staff who's been working day in and day out will know something's up. We've had instances where we've had to get word to the conductor that a principal dancer is injured and we have to cut a variation or change the ending to a different, or go to a different tempo. Oh gosh, who else? Everything from that to also in bigger theaters like the Met, I've had to call security and house managers in the middle of performances to problem solve various things that have been happening. So there's just ongoing, never-ending sort of things that happen during a performance.
Perfect. And I'll just throw it out there. What's your favorite part of being a stage manager at ABT?
Oh, well, you've hit on it, the live aspect. My favorite part is truly knowing that the show would not happen without us, without the stage managers. The dancers are the ones who are visible and taking a bow at the end. And there are a lot of jobs backstage, hundreds of people backstage. And it is a choreography and a sort of a dance all unto itself. So being able to manage that and literally manage backstage choreography, sometimes in a theater that's tiny and literally requires choreography of who can pass whom. I'm thinking about when we used to do Nutcracker at BAM in Brooklyn. The theater is lovely, but the show is a little too large for the theater. So to make that all work out and to problem solve all of that is such a great feeling when it comes together. And you just know that you've been part of something wonderful. And not to mention, you get to see the best dancers in the world and hear some of the best live music on a regular basis. Probably the biggest thing I've missed this whole year is having performing arts just be part of my everyday, background. I'm so used to just hearing live music, whether it's the rehearsals or the performances, and just feeding off that beauty.
Well, Danielle, thank you so much. And I think we're going to end this video today with a clip from one of my favorite things I've ever seen backstage, is when I got to go to Hong Kong with the company and they were doing whipped cream, and at the beginning of the ballet, and at the beginning of the ballet, when the horse the horse comes off stage, there's not enough room to get the horse off stage, so he has to go through the wig and makeup area and run through to go to another entrance, and it's one of the funniest things. And we get to see Jeremiah, one of our other stage managers, leading the horse through the backstage area where normally horses don't go, and it's not a real horse.
Past offices and the whole 9 yards. Yep.
It's one of the best things.
Incredible, yes.
So I feel like that's a perfect way to end the choreography, the backstage choreography, as you described, because nothing, I think, demonstrates it better than that clip. So enjoy, everybody. And Danielle, thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you at the theater again soon.
I hope to see you all again soon at the theater, indeed. Thank you.
Down.